The stagecoach rattled into Black Hawk, Colorado on a bitter February afternoon in 1878, carrying a woman who clutched a bleeding dog against her worn traveling dress, as if the animal were her last connection to humanity itself. Olivia Montgomery pressed her cheek against the dog's matted fur, whispering reassurances she did not believe, as the stage lurched to a stop outside the mining town's modest depot. Through the dust-streaked window, she could see wooden buildings clinging to the steep mountain slopes, their false fronts painted in fading colors that spoke of optimism from years past. Smoke curled from dozens of chimneys, and somewhere in the distance, she heard the rhythmic pounding of stamp mills crushing ore from the surrounding gold and silver mines. The dog whimpered, and Olivia felt fresh blood seep through the makeshift bandage she had torn from her petticoat somewhere outside of Denver. The animal had crawled onto the road 3 hours ago, dragging a hind leg that bore what looked like a bullet wound. The driver had cursed and threatened to leave the creature, but Olivia had climbed down herself, lifted the 40-pound animal despite the driver's protests, and carried it back inside. The other passengers had moved as far from her as the cramped space allowed, their faces twisted in disgust at the blood and dirt she had brought into their midst. She did not care what they thought. In the 6 weeks since leaving Philadelphia, she had learned that survival mattered more than propriety, and kindness was a currency that held value even when everything else had been stripped away. The door swung open, and the driver's weathered face appeared. "Black Hawk, miss. End of the line for you." Olivia gathered her carpetbag with one hand while cradling the dog with the other. The animal was a mixed breed, probably part shepherd, with intelligent brown eyes that had looked at her with something like gratitude when she had lifted him from the frozen mud. She had no idea how she would manage in a strange town with a wounded dog and exactly $12 to her name, but she had come too far to turn back now. She stepped down from the stage, her boots sinking into snow-crusted mud. The altitude made her dizzy, and the cold cut through her inadequate wool coat like knives. Philadelphia had been cold in winter, but nothing like this mountain chill that seemed to freeze the air in her lungs. "Miss Montgomery," a man's voice, uncertain and hopeful. She turned to see a rotund gentleman in his 60s, dressed in a fine suit that seemed absurdly formal for the rough mining town. His face was kind, with soft features and pale blue eyes that widened when he saw the blood-stained dog in her arms. "Mr. Fletcher?" she asked, her own voice steadier than she felt. "Yes, yes, indeed." He hurried forward, then stopped short when the dog lifted its head and let out a low growl. "Good heavens, what happened?" "I found him on the road. He has been shot, I think." Olivia shifted the dog's weight, trying to ignore the way her arms trembled with exhaustion. "I could not leave him." Mr. Fletcher's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, concern, and something that might have been approval. He had seemed kind in his letters, offering marriage to a woman he had never met because, as he had written, he was lonely and getting older and wanted companionship more than passion. Olivia had accepted because she had no other choice, not after her father died leaving debts that consumed everything, not after her mother's brother had made it clear that Olivia could stay with his family only if she accepted his son's unwanted attentions. "We should get you settled," Mr. Fletcher said, though his eyes kept drifting to the dog with obvious concern. "My house is just up the hill. Perhaps we can find a veterinarian or at least someone who knows about animals. I would be grateful for that." Olivia followed as he collected her trunk from the back of the stage, noting how he wheezed with the effort despite the trunk's light weight. He was not a healthy man, she realized. His letters had mentioned some vague ailment, but seeing him now, She understood he was more fragile than she had imagined. They walked up a steep street lined with saloons, general stores, and boarding houses. Men in rough work clothes stared at her openly, and she heard whispered comments that made her cheeks burn. A woman alone was unusual enough, but a woman carrying a bleeding dog was apparently a spectacle worthy of commentary. "Ignore them," Mr. Fletcher said kindly. "Mining towns attract a rough element, but there are good people here too." They turned onto a quieter street where the houses sat farther apart, with small yards and better maintenance. Mr. Fletcher's home was a neat two-story structure painted white with blue shutters. It looked proper and respectable, exactly what she had expected from his letters. Inside, the house was tidy to the point of sterility. Every surface gleamed with polish, and the air smelled of lemon oil and tobacco. Mr. Fletcher set down her trunk and gestured vaguely toward the stairs. "Perhaps you should take the dog to the kitchen. I will ask my housekeeper if she knows anyone who might help." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "I should mention, Miss Montgomery, that I had hoped we might have a quiet evening to become acquainted. This complication is rather unexpected." Guilt twisted in Olivia's stomach, but she met his eyes steadily. "I understand, Mr. Fletcher, but I could not leave a suffering creature to die. If that speaks poorly of my character, then perhaps we are not suited after all." She had not meant to sound so defiant, but exhaustion and worry had stripped away her ability to be demure. If he sent her away now, she would have to find work in this town somehow, would have to survive without his protection or his name. To her surprise, Mr. Fletcher smiled. "No, Miss Montgomery, it speaks well of your character. I admire compassion, even when it is inconvenient." He pointed toward a door at the back of the hallway. "The kitchen is through there. I will see what I can arrange." Olivia carried the dog into a spacious kitchen with a large iron stove and a sturdy wooden table. She laid the animal carefully on the table, ignoring the voice in her head that said this was inappropriate, that she was ruining her chances before she had even begun. The dog's breathing was shallow, and when she unwrapped the makeshift bandage, she saw that the wound in his hind leg was deep and still bleeding sluggishly. She pumped water into a basin and found clean rags in a drawer. As she gently cleaned the wound, the dog whined but did not try to bite. His eyes followed her movements with a trust that made her throat tighten. Someone had cared for this animal once. He knew what gentleness was, which made his current suffering even more heartbreaking. The back door opened, bringing a gust of cold air and a man who filled the doorway with his presence. Olivia looked up and felt her breath catch. He was tall and lean, with broad shoulders that stretched the fabric of his canvas coat. His face was all hard angles and weathered tan, with a strong jaw shadowed by several days of stubble. Dark hair curled from beneath his hat, and his eyes were a startling shade of gray-green that seemed to see everything at once. He looked dangerous and capable and utterly masculine in a way that made Olivia acutely aware of how small the kitchen suddenly felt. "Mr. Fletcher said you have a wounded dog." His voice was deep and rough, like gravel underfoot. "Yes." Olivia forced herself to focus on the animal rather than the man. "He was shot, I think. I found him on the road from Denver." The man moved closer, removing his hat to reveal more of that dark hair. He was younger than she had first thought, probably not more than 30. His hands, when he reached out to examine the dog, were large and calloused but surprisingly gentle. "Bullet wound," he confirmed after a moment. "Went clean through, which is good. No fragments to dig out." He looked at her directly for the first time, and Olivia felt heat rise in her cheeks under the intensity of that gaze. "You the mail-order bride Fletcher's been expecting." "Yes, Olivia Montgomery," she hesitated. "And you are Lucas Quinn. I run the ranch outside of town. Supply beef to the mining camps. He turned his attention back to the dog, running his hands carefully over the animal's body. Got some cracked ribs too, and he is half-starved. Been on his own for a while, I would guess. Can you help him? Lucas glanced at her again, and something in his expression softened. I can try. Going to need to stitch this leg, and he will need to stay still for a few weeks while it heals. You have a place to keep him. Olivia looked around the pristine kitchen, thinking of Mr. Fletcher's obvious dismay at the blood and dirt. I am not certain. I only just arrived. Fletcher's a good man, but he is not fond of animals. Lucas straightened, and Olivia had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Tell you what, I will stitch the dog up and take him back to my ranch. Once he is healed, you can decide what to do with him. No. The word came out more forcefully than she intended. Thank you, but no. I will not abandon him to a stranger, no matter how well-meaning. Lucas studied her for a long moment, and Olivia refused to look away despite the way her heart hammered against her ribs. She had no logical reason to keep the dog, no way to care for it properly, but the idea of handing the animal over to someone else felt like another loss in a long chain of losses she could not afford. All right, Lucas said finally. Then you can come to the ranch and help care for him until he is well enough to travel. I cannot do that. I am supposed to, she broke off, unwilling to discuss her impending marriage with this stranger. I know what you are supposed to do, Lucas said, his tone dry. Fletcher will wait a few days. He has been alone this long, and he is not the type to rush a woman. He picked up the dog with practiced ease, cradling the animal against his chest. Get your coat. We are losing daylight. You cannot simply order me about, Olivia protested, even as she found herself reaching for her coat. I do not know you, and it would not be proper for me to go to your ranch. Nothing proper about carrying a bleeding dog into your intended husband's house either, but you did it anyway. Lucas was already moving toward the door. Make your choice, Miss Montgomery, but make it fast. Olivia grabbed her coat and hurried after him, her mind racing. This was madness. She should stay here, explain to Mr. Fletcher, begin the process of becoming his wife as they had agreed. But the dog looked at her over Lucas Quinn's shoulder with those trusting brown eyes, and she could not let him go with a stranger, could not break the silent promise she had made when she lifted him from the frozen road. Mr. Fletcher appeared in the hallway, looking anxious. Miss Montgomery. What is happening? Mr. Quinn has offered to help the dog, but he needs to do it at his ranch. I am going to accompany them. The words tumbled out in a rush. I apologize for the imposition, Mr. Fletcher. I know this is not what you expected, but I cannot leave the dog now. I will return as soon as he is stable. Mr. Fletcher glanced between Olivia and Lucas, his expression troubled. I am not sure this is appropriate, Miss Montgomery. Perhaps we should discuss, with respect, Fletcher. If we do not treat this dog soon, he will not make it through the night. Lucas's voice was firm but not unkind. Miss Montgomery can ride in the wagon with me. We will be at the ranch within the hour, and she will be perfectly safe. I will bring her back tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, Mr. Fletcher's face flushed. But that is impossible. People will talk. Miss Montgomery's reputation will survive a night spent caring for an injured animal, Lucas finished. This is Black Hawk, not Boston. People here are more concerned with silver strikes than social niceties. Olivia watched this exchange with a growing sense of unreality. She had traveled halfway across the country to marry a man she did not know, and now she was leaving with a different man entirely, all for the sake of a dog she had known for less than 3 hours. It made no sense, yet it felt more right than anything she had done in months. Please, Mr. Fletcher, she said quietly. I gave my word to this animal when I picked him up. Let me keep it. Mr. Fletcher looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. Very well, But please, Miss Montgomery, do be careful and do come back tomorrow." "I will," Olivia promised. "Thank you for understanding." Outside, Lucas had the dog settled in the back of a sturdy wagon hitched to two large horses. He helped Olivia onto the seat with an efficiency that suggested he did not often assist ladies, then climbed up beside her and took the reins. They drove out of Black Hawk in silence, following a road that climbed higher into the mountains. The sun was setting, painting the snow-covered peaks in shades of gold and rose. It was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way that made Olivia think of everything she had left behind in Philadelphia: the crowded streets, the familiar smells of the city, the certainty of knowing where she belonged. "You are a long way from home," Lucas said, breaking the silence. "How do you know where I am from? Fletcher mentioned you were coming from Philadelphia, and you have that Eastern look about you. Too clean, too proper." He glanced at her, and there might have been amusement in his eyes. "Though I suppose you are a bit less proper than you were this morning." Olivia looked down at her dress, stained with blood and mud, and felt a hysterical laugh bubble up in her chest. "I suppose I am. My mother would be horrified." "Your mother is not here. No, she died 3 years ago." Olivia wrapped her coat tighter against the cold. "It is just me now." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "That why you answered Fletcher's advertisement? That is none of your concern, Mr. Quinn." "No, I suppose it is not." He guided the horses around a bend in the road, and Olivia saw a valley opening up before them. "But you should know, Fletcher is a good man. Kind, honest, generous to a fault. But he is sick, Miss Montgomery. His heart is failing, and the altitude up here is not helping. I would wager he has 2 years at most, probably less." The words hit Olivia like a physical blow. He did not mention he would not. Fletcher is the type to bear his burdens quietly. Lucas's jaw tightened. "I am telling you because you deserve to know what you are agreeing to. Marriage to Fletcher will likely make you a widow before your next birthday." "Why are you telling me this?" Olivia demanded, anger surging through her. "If you are such good friends, why would you try to discourage me from marrying him?" "I am not trying to discourage you. I am trying to make sure you understand." Lucas pulled the wagon to a stop and turned to face her fully. "Fletcher deserves someone who will care for him, not someone who is just desperate for security. And you deserve to know what you are trading for that security." "You know nothing about me or my circumstances," Olivia said, her voice shaking. "Nothing about what I have given up or what I have survived to get here. Do not presume to judge my choices, Mr. Quinn." "I am not judging," Lucas said, his voice gentler. "I am just making sure you have all the information." They stared at each other in the fading light, and Olivia felt something shift between them, some recognition she could not name. This man was dangerous, but not in the way she had first feared. He was dangerous because he saw too much, understood too much about the calculations she had made to survive. From the back of the wagon, the dog whimpered, breaking the tension. "We should keep moving," Lucas said, taking up the reins again. "That dog needs attention." The ranch appeared as they crested another hill, a sprawling collection of buildings centered around a solid 2-story house built from logs and stone. Corrals spread out behind the house, and Olivia could see cattle moving in the distance, dark shapes against the snow. Smoke rose from the chimney, and light glowed in the windows, making the scene look almost welcoming. Lucas pulled the wagon up to the house and climbed down, then reached up to help Olivia. His hands were firm on her waist, steadying her as she navigated the awkward step down, and for a moment they stood close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Then he released her and moved to collect the dog. "Come on," he said, carrying the animal toward the house. "Let us see what we can do for him." Inside, The house was nothing like Mr. Fletcher's pristine home. It was clean but lived in, with comfortable furniture that showed signs of use and walls decorated with simple artwork and shelves of books. A fire blazed in the stone fireplace, filling the room with warmth and flickering light. Lucas carried the dog to a large table near the fire and laid him down carefully. "I need to gather supplies. There is coffee on the stove if you want some." He disappeared through a doorway, leaving Olivia alone with the dog. She moved closer to the table, running her hand gently over the animal's head. The dog's tail thumped once against the wood, a small sign of life that made Olivia's eyes sting with sudden tears. "You are going to be all right," she whispered. "I promise." Lucas returned carrying a wooden box filled with medical supplies bottles, needles, thread, bandages. He set it down and began laying out what he needed with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. "Have you treated many wounded animals?" Olivia asked. "Enough. Ranch work involves a lot of injuries, animals and people both." He threaded a curved needle with steady hands. "You should hold his head. This is going to hurt and he might try to bite." Olivia positioned herself at the dog's head, gripping his muzzle gently but firmly. Lucas poured something from a bottle over the wound, and the dog jerked and whined. But Olivia held him steady, murmuring reassurances. Then Lucas began to stitch, his movements quick and precise. Olivia watched his face as he worked, seeing the concentration in his eyes, the firm set of his mouth. There was something compelling about his focus, the way he gave the task his complete attention. "How did you learn to do this?" she asked quietly. "Grew up on a ranch in Texas." "My father taught me." Lucas tied off a stitch and started another. "Said a man who could not care for his animals was not worth much. You are from Texas originally, born there, left when I was 20. He did not elaborate, and Olivia sensed the story behind those words was not one he shared easily. "What brought you to Colorado?" Lucas glanced up at her briefly. "New start. Better opportunities. The usual reasons people go west, running from something or running toward something." His hand stilled for a moment, and when he met her eyes, there was something raw in his expression. "Both, I suppose. Same as you, I would guess." "Perhaps," Olivia admitted. They fell silent as Lucas finished the stitching. He wrapped the leg in clean bandages, then examined the dog's ribs, running his hands carefully over the animal's torso. "Ribs will heal on their own, but he needs rest and food." Lucas straightened and wiped his hands on a rag. "He can stay in the barn tonight where it is warm." "I have a stall that will work. Can I stay with him?" The words were out before Olivia could stop them. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "In the barn?" "I know it sounds foolish, but he is in a strange place and he is hurt. I do not want him to be frightened." "Miss Montgomery, that dog is too exhausted to be frightened, and you look about ready to fall over yourself." Lucas's voice was firm but not unkind. "You can take the guest room upstairs. I will check on the dog during the night. But no arguments. You need rest, and the dog needs quiet." He picked up the animal again, handling the weight as if it were nothing. "Come on. Help me get him settled, then you are going to eat something and sleep." Olivia wanted to protest, but exhaustion was catching up with her, making her limbs heavy and her thoughts sluggish. She followed Lucas out to the barn, a large structure that smelled of hay and horses and leather. Several horses nickered from their stalls as they entered, and Lucas spoke to them quietly, his voice taking on a gentleness that surprised her. He settled the dog in a large stall padded with fresh straw and covered him with a thick blanket. The dog sighed and closed his eyes, finally surrendering to sleep. "He will be fine," Lucas said, leading Olivia back toward the house. "Dogs are tougher than they look." Back inside, Lucas heated soup on the stove and set out bread and butter. They ate at the kitchen table, and Olivia realized she was ravenously hungry, having eaten nothing since a meager breakfast in Denver. The soup was simple but good, rich with beef and vegetables, and the bread was fresh enough to still be slightly warm. "This is delicious," she said between bites. "Mrs. Chen from town makes the bread. She is a better cook than I will ever be." Lucas refilled her bowl without asking. "Eat more." "You are too thin." "That is hardly appropriate commentary, Mr. Quinn." "Maybe not, but it is true." He leaned back in his chair, watching her with those penetrating eyes. "You have had a hard time of it recently, have you not?" Olivia set down her spoon, suddenly unable to eat any more. "My father died 18 months ago. He had debts I did not know about. We lost everything: our house, our possessions, our standing in society. I went to live with my uncle's family and—" She trailed off, unwilling to speak about her cousin's unwanted advances, the way her aunt had blamed her for encouraging him. "And they made you feel unwelcome," Lucas finished quietly. "Yes." Olivia stared at her bowl. Mr. Fletcher's advertisement seemed like an answer. A chance to start over somewhere new, to have a home again. "Marriage to a dying man," Lucas said bluntly. "That is a high price for security. We all pay prices, Mr. Quinn. I am sure yours was no less dear." Olivia met his eyes steadily. "You left Texas when you were 20 and came here alone. That suggests your own past was not without complication." Lucas's expression hardened. "My past is my own business, as mine is mine," Olivia replied. "Yet you pry into my circumstances without hesitation." For a moment, tension crackled between them. Then, unexpectedly, Lucas smiled, a real smile that transformed his face from harsh to devastatingly handsome. "You have claws hidden under all that propriety, Miss Montgomery. Good. You will need them out here." Olivia felt her cheeks warm and busied herself with her soup. "I am simply tired of being treated as if I am incapable of understanding my own choices." "Fair enough." Lucas stood and began clearing the dishes. "Guest room is upstairs, first door on the right. There are extra blankets in the chest if you need them. I will wake you before dawn so we can check on the dog before I take you back to town." "Thank you, Mr. Quinn, for everything." Olivia hesitated. "I know this was an imposition. The dog needed help. You needed to give it. Sometimes things are that simple." He carried the dishes to the sink. "Now go get some sleep, Miss Montgomery. Tomorrow is going to be a long day." Olivia climbed the stairs and found the guest room exactly where Lucas had said. It was simply furnished but clean, with a comfortable-looking bed covered in a colorful quilt. She removed her boots and dress, shivering in the cold air, then climbed under the covers in her shift and petticoat. She should have felt strange sleeping in a strange man's house, should have worried about propriety and reputation. But exhaustion overwhelmed everything else, and within minutes, she was asleep. She woke to the smell of coffee and faint gray light coming through the window. For a moment, she could not remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back: the dog, Lucas Quinn, the ranch. She dressed quickly in the same blood-stained dress, grimacing at the state of it, and hurried downstairs. Lucas was already in the kitchen, pouring coffee into 2 tin cups. He handed her one without comment, and they walked together through the cold morning air to the barn. The dog lifted his head when they entered, his tail thumping weakly against the straw. Olivia knelt beside him, running her hands over his fur, and was relieved to feel that he was warm and alert. "He made it through the night," Lucas said, crouching beside her. "That is a good sign. Wound looks clean, no sign of infection yet. What happens now? He needs rest, food, and time. I will keep him here and make sure he gets what he needs." Lucas glanced at her. "You should go back to Fletcher's house, settle in properly. I will send word when the dog is well enough to move." "I want to help," Olivia said. I cannot just abandon him. You are not abandoning him. You are letting someone with experience care for him. Lucas's voice was gentle but firm. And you have your own life to sort out. Fletcher is waiting for you. The name landed between them like a stone. Olivia had almost forgotten about Mr. Fletcher, about the arrangement that had brought her to Black Hawk in the first place. Guilt twisted in her stomach. You are right, of course, she said quietly. I should go back. They drove back to Black Hawk in silence as the sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The town was just beginning to wake, with smoke rising from chimneys and a few early risers moving along the streets. Lucas stopped the wagon in front of Mr. Fletcher's house. Before Olivia could climb down, he touched her arm briefly. The dog will be fine, he said. I will send word in a few days. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. I am deeply grateful for your help. Lucas, he said. If we are going to be neighbors, you might as well use my name. Then you must call me Olivia, she replied, though something about using his given name felt dangerously intimate. She climbed down from the wagon and walked to the front door, feeling Lucas's eyes on her back. Mr. Fletcher opened the door before she could knock, his face anxious. Miss Montgomery, thank heavens. I was so worried. He ushered her inside, then glanced past her at Lucas. Thank you, Quinn, for looking after her. The dog is going to make it, Lucas said. I will send word when he is recovered. He tipped his hat to Olivia, his gray-green eyes lingering on her face for a moment longer than necessary, then drove away. Mr. Fletcher closed the door and turned to Olivia with a mixture of relief and concern. My dear, I am so glad you are back safely. I barely slept worrying about the impropriety of the situation. I apologize for causing you distress, Olivia said sincerely, but the dog's life was at stake. Yes, I understand. Your compassion does you credit. He gestured toward the stairs. Perhaps you would like to freshen up. Then we could have breakfast and discuss our arrangement properly. Olivia spent an hour washing and changing into a clean dress from her trunk, doing what she could to make herself presentable. When she came downstairs, Mr. Fletcher had set out a modest breakfast of eggs, toast, and tea. They sat across from each other at the dining table, and Olivia was struck by how different this felt from the simple meal she had shared with Lucas the night before. Everything here was proper and formal, with china plates and silver cutlery and careful conversation. I want you to know, Miss Montgomery, that I do not expect an immediate answer about our marriage, Mr. Fletcher began. I realize this is all very sudden, and last night's events have complicated matters further. I would be happy for us to take some time to become acquainted before making any final decisions. That is very generous of you, Olivia said, relieved. I confess I am quite overwhelmed by everything that has happened. Of course you are, my dear. It is perfectly understandable. Mr. Fletcher poured more tea into her cup. Perhaps we could spend today simply talking. I could show you around the town, introduce you to some of the local families, help you feel more at home here. They spent the day doing exactly that. Mr. Fletcher was a perfect gentleman, introducing her to shopkeepers and neighbors, showing her the church and the school and the lending library he had helped establish. Everyone they met was polite, though Olivia sensed the curiosity behind their courteous words. News traveled fast in a small town, and she had no doubt that her arrival with a wounded dog had already become common knowledge. By evening, Olivia's head was spinning with names and faces and information. Mr. Fletcher walked her back to his house as the sun set, and they stood awkwardly in the parlor, neither quite sure how to end the day. I have made up the guest room for you, Mr. Fletcher said. I hope you will be comfortable there. And please do not feel any pressure about our arrangement. I am a patient man, Miss Montgomery. I can wait as long as you need. "You are very kind," Olivia said, meaning it. Mr. Fletcher was everything she had hoped for in responding to his advertisement: kind, considerate, financially secure. Yet she could not shake the memory of Lucas's gray-green eyes, the way his hands had moved with such confidence and skill as he stitched the dog's wound. She pushed the thought away firmly. Lucas Quinn was not part of her future. Mr. Fletcher was. The next 3 days passed in a similar pattern. Olivia helped Mr. Fletcher's housekeeper with household tasks, took walks around town, and tried to envision a life here as Mrs. Fletcher. It should have been easy to imagine. Mr. Fletcher was attentive and kind, and his house was comfortable and well-appointed. Yet something felt wrong, like a coat that did not quite fit. On the 4th morning, a young boy arrived at the door with a note. Olivia's heart leaped when she saw Lucas's bold handwriting. "The dog is recovering well. He can stand on the injured leg now and is eating everything I put in front of him. You are welcome to visit whenever convenient. Lucas Quinn." "Is it news about your dog?" Mr. Fletcher asked, reading her expression. "Yes, Mr. Quinn says he is recovering well." Olivia folded the note carefully. "I would like to visit him if that would be acceptable." Mr. Fletcher's face showed a flicker of something: disappointment perhaps, or concern, but he nodded. "Of course, my dear. Quinn's ranch is not far. I could arrange for someone to drive you." "That would be wonderful. Thank you." The next morning, Mr. Fletcher's hired man drove Olivia out to the ranch in a small buggy. She told herself she was only going to check on the dog, that her eagerness had nothing to do with seeing Lucas again. But when the ranch came into view, and she saw Lucas working in one of the corrals, something in her chest tightened with an emotion she refused to name. Lucas saw the buggy approaching and walked over, wiping his hands on his trousers. He wore no coat despite the cold, just a work shirt and vest that showed the strength in his shoulders and arms. Olivia forced herself to look away. "Miss Montgomery," he said, though his eyes held a warmth that suggested he had noticed her looking. "Come to see your patient." "If it is not inconvenient." "Never inconvenient." He helped her down from the buggy, his hands lingering on her waist a moment longer than necessary. "He has been waiting for you." They walked to the barn together, and Lucas opened the stall door to reveal the dog sitting up, his tail wagging enthusiastically. The transformation was remarkable. The animal's eyes were bright and alert, his coat already looking healthier, and when Olivia knelt beside him, he licked her face with obvious joy. "Oh, you sweet thing," Olivia murmured, running her hands over him carefully. "Look at you, so much better already." "He is a fighter," Lucas said, leaning against the stall door. "Gained back some weight and the leg is healing clean. Should be able to walk properly within another week or 2. "That is wonderful news." Olivia looked up at Lucas, smiling genuinely for the first time since arriving in Black Hawk. "Thank you for taking such good care of him." "Had good help," Lucas said, his expression unreadable. "He seems to respond well to your visits." "This is my first visit." "Is it?" Lucas's eyebrow quirked. "Seems longer somehow." There was something weighted in those words, some suggestion of connection that made Olivia's breath catch. She stood quickly, brushing straw from her skirt. "I should not take up too much of your time. I know you have work to do." "Stay as long as you like," Lucas said. "I was about to take a break anyway." "Coffee?" Olivia knew she should decline, knew that spending time alone with Lucas was dangerous in ways she could not fully articulate. But the word that came out was, yes. They sat in Lucas's kitchen again, drinking coffee and talking about small things: the weather, the town, the challenges of ranching in the mountains. But beneath the surface conversation, Olivia felt currents of something deeper, something that made her hyper-aware of every movement Lucas made, every time his eyes met hers. Fletcher treating you well? Lucas asked after a while. Very well. He is everything a gentleman should be. But, Lucas prompted. There is no but, Olivia said quickly. I am grateful for his kindness and his willingness to give me time to adjust. You do not love him. It was not a question. Love was not part of our arrangement, Mr. Quinn. He wanted a companion and I needed security. It is a practical arrangement between practical people. You are many things, Olivia Montgomery, but practical is not one of them. Lucas set down his coffee cup. A practical woman would have left that dog on the road. Perhaps I am only practical about certain things, Olivia said stiffly. Or perhaps you are lying to yourself about what you really want. Lucas stood and moved to the window, looking out at the mountains. Fletcher is a good man and he deserves honesty. If you cannot give him that, you should not marry him. How dare you presume to tell me what I should do, Olivia said, anger flaring. You know nothing about my situation or my choices. I know you are not happy. Lucas turned to face her, his expression intense. I know you look like you are going through the motions of someone else's life, not living your own. And what would you have me do instead? Refuse Fletcher's offer and end up alone and destitute. That is easy for you to say when you have this ranch, your independence. I am not saying it is easy. I am saying it is honest. Lucas crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping close enough that Olivia had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. There are other options, other ways to build a life. You do not have to marry a man you do not love just to survive. What other options? Olivia demanded, her heart pounding. Please enlighten me about all these choices I apparently have. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, and Olivia saw something shift in his expression, some decision being made. You could stay here, work on the ranch. I could use help with the horses, the bookkeeping, room and board plus wages, honest work for honest pay. The offer hung between them, impossible and tempting in equal measure. Olivia stared at Lucas, trying to understand what he was really suggesting. That would be completely inappropriate, she said finally. An unmarried woman living on a ranch with an unmarried man. My reputation would be destroyed. Your reputation is already questionable after spending the night here, Lucas pointed out. And who cares what people think anyway? This is the West, not Philadelphia. People here judge you by what you do, not by whose rules you follow. That is not true, and you know it, Olivia said. Women are judged by different standards everywhere. Maybe. But at least here you would be judged for choices you made yourself, not choices someone else made for you. Olivia wanted to argue, but part of her recognized the truth in his words. Everything in her life since her father's death had been dictated by circumstance and other people's expectations. Coming to Black Hawk as Fletcher's mail-order bride was just another variation on the same theme, trading one form of dependence for another. I should go, she said abruptly. Mr. Fletcher will wonder where I am. Will he? Lucas asked softly. Or will he just accept whatever story you tell him because he is too polite to question you? The accuracy of that observation stung. Olivia turned away, unable to meet Lucas's eyes. Thank you for caring for the dog, she said formally. Please send word when he is well enough to leave your care. Olivia, good day, Mr. Quinn. She walked out of the house and climbed into the waiting buggy, refusing to look back at the ranch as they drove away. But she felt Lucas's presence like a physical thing, pulling at her with a gravity she could not ignore. That night, Mr. Fletcher announced that he had arranged a small dinner party for the following weekend so that Olivia could meet more of Black Hawk's prominent citizens. He was clearly trying to help her integrate into the community, to give her a sense of belonging. Olivia thanked him and agreed to the party. Even as part of her rebelled against the image of her future, it represented polite dinners, careful conversations, a life of respectable constraints. Over the next week, Olivia threw herself into preparing for the party, helping Mr. Fletcher's housekeeper with cooking and cleaning and planning. She told herself that this was what she wanted, what she had come here for. A stable life, a kind husband, a place in a community. But at night, lying in the guest room bed, she thought about Lucas's offer. The freedom it represented, the possibility of building something on her own terms. And she thought about the way he had looked at her, with an intensity that suggested he saw not just a desperate woman seeking security, but a person with strength and value and choices. The dinner party was exactly what Olivia expected: a dozen carefully selected guests, polite conversation, good food served on fine china. She smiled and chatted and played the role of the gracious almost bride, and everyone seemed pleased with her performance. Lucas was not invited, of course. Mr. Fletcher moved in different social circles than a rancher, no matter how successful. But Olivia found herself watching the door anyway, half hoping he would appear and disrupt the careful propriety of the evening. He did not, of course. And when the party ended and the guests departed with warm wishes and promises to visit, Olivia felt an emptiness that had nothing to do with exhaustion. "That went wonderfully," Mr. Fletcher said, beaming. "Everyone was charmed by you, my dear. I think you are going to fit in here very well." "Thank you," Olivia murmured. "I was thinking," Mr. Fletcher continued, "that perhaps we should discuss setting a date for the wedding. Nothing too soon, of course, but it would be nice to have something definite to plan toward." Olivia's throat tightened. "Could we discuss this another time?" "I am rather tired from the party." Of course, we have plenty of time." Mr. Fletcher patted her hand gently. "Good night, my dear." Olivia went upstairs and sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her hands. They were softer than they had been a week ago, with no bloodstains or dirt under the nails. She was clean and proper and on the path to becoming Mrs. Fletcher, respectable widow-to-be. She had never felt more lost in her life. The next morning, another note arrived from Lucas. "The dog can walk without limping now. I think he is ready to leave whenever you want to collect him." Olivia read the note 3 times, hearing the finality in those words. Lucas was telling her that their connection, such as it was, had reached its natural end. The dog was healed and there was no more reason for her to visit the ranch. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt like something precious was slipping through her fingers. "Good news about your dog?" Mr. Fletcher asked. "Yes. Mr. Quinn says he is fully recovered. I should collect him soon." Olivia folded the note. "Though I confess I am not sure what to do with him. This house is not really suitable for a large dog." Mr. Fletcher looked uncomfortable. "I must admit, Miss Montgomery, that I am not fond of animals in the house." "Perhaps Quinn could find him a home, or you could leave him at the ranch." "Leave him at the ranch," Olivia repeated slowly. "It seems the most practical solution," Mr. Fletcher said. "The dog would be well cared for and you could visit him whenever you like." Practical. That word again. Olivia felt something inside her snap. "I would like to go to the ranch today," she said. "To see the dog and discuss arrangements with Mr. Quinn. Of course, I will arrange for the buggy." "No," Olivia stood, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "I would like to walk. The weather is pleasant and I could use the exercise." "Walk? My dear, it is several miles, and not entirely proper for you to visit Quinn alone again." "I will be fine, Mr. Fletcher. I promise to be back before dark." She left before he could argue further, wrapping herself in her coat and walking out into the crisp March air. The road to Lucas's ranch was longer on foot than in the buggy, but Olivia welcomed the exercise, the time to think. She had been making decisions out of fear for so long: fear of poverty, fear of being alone, fear of facing an uncertain future. Coming to Black Hawk to marry Mr. Fletcher was just another decision made from fear, not desire. And no matter how kind Mr. Fletcher was, no matter how comfortable his home, she could not build a real life on that foundation. The ranch appeared after an hour of walking, and Olivia saw Lucas working with a horse in one of the corrals. He looked up as she approached, surprise crossing his face. "Did you walk here?" he asked, opening the corral gate and coming to meet her. "I needed to think," Olivia said. "That is a long walk for thinking." Lucas studied her face and Olivia saw concern in his eyes. "Everything all right?" "The dog is recovered." "Yes. Come see." They walked to the barn, and Lucas opened the stall to reveal the dog standing strong and healthy, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. Olivia knelt and let the animal nuzzle against her, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the unconditional affection in every movement. "He is wonderful," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You did such a good job with him. He did the healing himself. I just gave him what he needed." Lucas crouched beside her, running his hand over the dog's head. "What are you going to do with him?" "I do not know." Olivia sat back on her heels, looking at Lucas. "Mr. Fletcher suggested I leave him here with you." "That would work," Lucas said carefully. "Though I expect the dog would rather go with you, and I would rather keep him. But keeping him means—" Olivia trailed off, struggling to articulate the tangle of thoughts and feelings. "Means what?" Lucas prompted. "Means I cannot marry Mr. Fletcher." The words came out in a rush, and once started, Olivia could not stop. "I cannot marry him because I do not love him and I never will. Because marriage should be more than a practical arrangement, and I deserve more than to spend my life being grateful for security. Because I picked up a wounded dog from a frozen road instead of leaving him to die, and that means something about who I am and what I want from life." Lucas was very still, his eyes locked on her face. "What do you want from life, Olivia?" "I want to matter," she said, her voice shaking. "I want to do work that means something, to build something with my own hands. I want to look at the mountains and feel alive instead of trapped. I want—" She stopped, unable to finish. "What?" Lucas asked softly. "What else do you want?" Olivia met his eyes, seeing her own longing reflected there, and suddenly understood that this had been building since the moment he walked into Mr. Fletcher's kitchen 4 days ago. Not love, not yet, but the possibility of love. The recognition of a kindred spirit, someone who understood the price of survival and the value of freedom. "I want to choose my own life," she whispered. "Not have it chosen for me by circumstances or fear." Lucas reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. His palms were rough with calluses, warm against her skin, and Olivia felt something in her chest crack open at the gentleness of his touch. "Then choose," he said. "Right here, right now, choose what you want." "I cannot just—" "Yes, you can. That is what I am telling you, Olivia. You can choose differently. It will not be easy and people will talk, but you can do it. And if I choose to stay here, to accept your offer of work on the ranch—" Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. "What then?" "Then you stay. You work with the horses, help with the accounts, prove to yourself that you can build a life on your own terms." Lucas's thumb traced her cheekbone. "And maybe, if we are both lucky, we figure out what this is between us." "You feel it too," Olivia breathed. "Since the moment you glared at me in Fletcher's kitchen with blood on your dress and determination in your eyes," Lucas admitted. "I have been trying to ignore it out of respect for Fletcher, but I am not sure I can anymore." "Mr. Fletcher deserves honesty," Olivia said, echoing Lucas's words from days before. "He does, which means you need to tell him the truth, that you cannot marry him." Olivia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of that decision. It would hurt Mr. Fletcher, would disappoint him and probably anger him. It would leave her vulnerable and uncertain, dependent on Lucas's generosity and her own untested abilities. It went against everything she had been taught about duty and gratitude and a woman's place, but it was honest. And it was hers. She opened her eyes and looked at Lucas, seeing the hope and fear in his expression, the way he was holding himself back, waiting for her decision. "I need to go back to town," she said. Something in Lucas's face shuddered, and he started to pull away. Olivia caught his hands, holding them tight. "I need to go back to town and tell Mr. Fletcher that I cannot marry him," she continued. "That I am grateful for his kindness, but I cannot accept his offer. And then I need to collect my things and return here if your offer still stands." The smile that spread across Lucas's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "My offer stands, for as long as you want it." "Then that is what I choose," Olivia said, feeling lighter than she had in months. "I choose this. I choose to try." Lucas pulled her to her feet and into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. Olivia pressed her face against his shirt, breathing in the scent of him, leather and soap, and something uniquely his own. His heart beat strong and steady under her ear, and she felt safe in a way that had nothing to do with security and everything to do with being seen and valued for who she really was. "We should go," Lucas said after a long moment, "before it gets dark. I will drive you back to town and wait while you talk to Fletcher." They collected the dog, who jumped eagerly into the back of Lucas's wagon, and drove to Black Hawk in the fading afternoon light. Neither of them spoke much, but Lucas's hand found hers on the seat between them, and Olivia held on tight, drawing strength from his solid presence. Mr. Fletcher answered the door with obvious relief. "Miss Montgomery, thank heavens." "I was beginning to worry," he broke off, seeing Lucas standing behind Olivia and the dog sitting in the wagon. "Is something wrong? May we come in?" Olivia asked. "I need to speak with you." They sat in Mr. Fletcher's parlor, and Olivia felt Lucas's presence beside her like an anchor as she searched for the right words. "Mr. Fletcher," she began, "you have been nothing but kind to me since I arrived. You have been patient and generous and everything a gentleman should be. But—" Mr. Fletcher's face was pale, as if he already knew what was coming. "But I cannot marry you. I thought I could enter into a practical arrangement, could build a life based on gratitude and companionship. But I realize now that it would not be fair to you or to me. You deserve someone who can love you properly, not someone who is simply grateful for security." Mr. Fletcher was silent for a long time, his hands folded in his lap. When he finally spoke, his voice was sad but not angry. "I suspected as much, if I am honest with myself. The way you looked at that dog, the urgency to care for it, that was not the behavior of a woman ready to settle into a quiet life with an old man." "You are not old," Olivia protested. "Old enough. And sick enough to know that I was perhaps selfish in bringing you all the way out here." Mr. Fletcher looked at Lucas. "I assume you had something to do with this decision." "I offered Miss Montgomery a position at my ranch," Lucas said steadily. "Work, not marriage, a chance to build something on her own terms." "I see." Mr. Fletcher studied them both, and Olivia saw understanding dawn in his eyes. "And if I were to guess, I would say there might be more than just employment in your future together." "That is not certain," Olivia said quickly. "I am not leaving you for another man, Mr. Fletcher. I am leaving because I cannot be the wife you need." "Perhaps that amounts to the same thing," Mr. Fletcher said gently, "but I appreciate the distinction." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the darkening street. "I am disappointed, Miss Montgomery, but not surprised. And I am not angry. You are young and full of life, and I had no right to ask you to spend that life caring for a dying man." "You are not dying," Olivia said, though Lucas's words from that first night echoed in her mind. "I am dying, my dear, slowly, but inevitably." My heart is failing, and the altitude here makes it worse every day." Mr. Fletcher turned back to face them, his expression resigned. "I knew it when I placed that advertisement, knew I was asking someone to become a widow before they had barely been a wife. It was selfish of me." "It was human," Olivia said softly. "Everyone wants companionship. There is no shame in that. No, but there is shame in not being honest about what I was really offering." Mr. Fletcher moved to his desk and pulled out an envelope. "I want you to have this. It is the money I had set aside for your wedding dress and other necessities. Consider it payment for the inconvenience I have caused you. Mr. Fletcher, I cannot please Miss Montgomery. It would make me feel better about this whole situation." He pressed the envelope into her hands. "Buy yourself some proper clothes for ranch work or save it for whatever future you build, but take it." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes at his kindness. "Thank you for everything, truly." "Take care of her, Quinn," Mr. Fletcher said, looking at Lucas. "And if you hurt her, you will answer to me, sick or not." "Understood," Lucas said, his tone serious. "I will do my best by her." They collected Olivia's trunk and loaded it into the wagon along with the dog. As they prepared to leave, Mr. Fletcher touched Olivia's arm gently. "I hope you find what you are looking for out here, Miss Montgomery, and I hope you know that if things do not work out, my door is always open, not as a potential husband, but as a friend." "That means more than you know," Olivia said, and on impulse, she leaned up and kissed his cheek. "I hope you find someone who can give you what you need, Mr. Fletcher. You truly deserve that." They drove out of town as full darkness fell, and Olivia did not look back. She felt no regret, only a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration at what she had chosen. Beside her, Lucas drove with quiet confidence, and in the back, the dog curled up on her trunk, content. "You can stay in the guest room as long as you need," Lucas said as they climbed into the mountains. "No pressure, no expectations. You work on the ranch, I pay you fair wages, and we see where things go." "What if people talk?" Olivia asked. "They will talk no matter what you do. Might as well give them something interesting to discuss." Lucas glanced at her, his expression softening. "But if it bothers you, we can make arrangements. Maybe hire a woman from town to come stay as a chaperone or something." "I do not want a chaperone," Olivia said. "I want what you offered, a chance to prove myself, to build something real. If that means people talk, then so be it." "All right then." Lucas smiled. "Welcome to the Quinn Ranch, Olivia Montgomery." They arrived at the ranch under a sky full of stars, and Lucas helped Olivia carry her trunk upstairs to the guest room. The house felt different now, not a temporary refuge but the beginning of something new. "Get some rest," Lucas said from the doorway. "Tomorrow we will start figuring out how this is going to work." But neither of them moved, caught in the awareness of being alone together, of the choices that had been made and the possibilities that stretched ahead. "Lucas," Olivia said softly. "Yes, thank you, for seeing me when I could not see myself." Lucas crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Thank you for being brave enough to choose differently." He kissed her forehead, gentle and chaste, then released her and left the room, closing the door softly behind him. Olivia stood in the middle of the room, her fingers touching the spot where his lips had been, and felt her heart race with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She had chosen this. Now she had to prove she could do it. The next morning, Olivia woke to the sound of roosters crowing and the smell of coffee drifting up from the kitchen. She dressed quickly in her most practical dress, though even that felt too delicate for ranch work, and hurried downstairs. Lucas was at the stove, cooking eggs and bacon with the efficiency of long practice. He looked up when she entered and smiled, and Olivia felt warmth spread through her chest at the easy welcome in his expression. "Morning. Sleep well." Better than I have in months, Olivia admitted. What can I do to help? Pour coffee, set the table. Then after breakfast, I will show you around the ranch properly and we can figure out where you will be most useful. They ate together in comfortable silence, and then Lucas led her outside into the bright morning sun. The ranch spread out before them, corrals, barns, fields stretching toward the mountains. It was beautiful in a raw, unpolished way that made Olivia's chest tighten with something like recognition. I run about 200 head of cattle, Lucas explained as they walked. Supply beef to the mining camps and sell breeding stock to other ranchers. Also have about 20 horses, some for the ranch work. Others I breed and train for sale. That sounds like a lot for one person to manage, Olivia observed. I have 2 men who work for me, Tom and his son Jake. They live in the bunkhouse over there. Lucas pointed to a smaller building past the main barn. Good workers, but we could use more hands, especially during calving season. What would you have me do? Olivia asked. That depends on what you are willing to learn. Lucas leaned against a fence rail, studying her. You said you wanted to work with horses. Have you ridden before? A little when I was younger, nothing recent. We can start there then. Get you comfortable in the saddle, teach you how to handle the horses. Eventually, maybe you can help with the training. Lucas's eyes held a challenge. Fair warning, it is hard work. You will be sore and tired and probably frustrated more often than not. I am not afraid of hard work, Olivia said firmly. No, I do not suppose you are. Lucas pushed off the fence. Come on then. Let us see what you can do. He led her to the barn and introduced her to a gentle mare named Rosie. Under Lucas's patient instruction, Olivia learned how to brush the horse properly, how to check her hooves, how to saddle her with the heavy Western tack that was so different from the English saddles she remembered from childhood. Then came the riding. Lucas mounted his own horse, a big bay gelding named Smoke, and led Olivia out into one of the corrals. For the first hour, he had her practice basic movements, walking, stopping, turning. Olivia's legs ached from gripping the saddle, and her hands felt clumsy on the reins, but she persisted, driven by determination and Lucas's quiet encouragement. You have a good seat, Lucas said after a while. Natural balance. With practice, you will be fine. The praise warmed her more than it should have. Olivia had spent so long feeling useless, her skills in needlework and tea pouring irrelevant in this new world. To be told she could do something well, something practical and valuable, felt like a gift. They worked with the horses all morning, and by the time they broke for lunch, Olivia was exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. Her muscles screamed with every movement, but she felt alive in a way she had not experienced in years. Lucas made simple sandwiches, and they ate on the porch with the dog sprawled at their feet, soaking up the weak March sunshine. You did well today, Lucas said. Better than I expected for a first day. I am going to be impossibly sore tomorrow, Olivia predicted, probably. But you will work through it and then you will be stronger. Lucas looked at her, his expression serious. This life is not easy, Olivia. I want to.